He knows before he can say why. That is the thing nobody tells you about this job. Not the cold, not the hours, not the particular quality of silence that settles into a royal residence after midnight when the last aide has gone home, and the building is left to the people whose job is to hold it while the world sleeps. Those things you can prepare for. Those things you can describe to someone who has never done it, and they will nod and say, yes, that sounds difficult, and they will be approximately right. What you cannot prepare for, and what you cannot describe, is the moment your body decides something is wrong before your mind has been consulted. It is 3:04 a.m. Guardsman Daniel Reeves is 11 minutes into his rotation through the East Corridor when it happens. He has walked this corridor, this exact corridor, these exact flagstones, past this exact sequence of portraits and doors, and wall-mounted lights burning at their overnight minimum approximately 400 times. He knows it the way you know a route you have driven so often your hands make the turns before your eyes register the road. He is not thinking about the corridor. He is thinking about nothing, which is not the same as being inattentive. It is, in fact, the precise cognitive state his training has spent 3 years trying to produce. And then his feet slow down. He has not decided to slow down. His feet have made that decision independently, and the rest of him is catching up, running the question backward from the answer his body has already reached. Something is wrong. He does not know what. He stops walking entirely, stands in the low amber light of the East Corridor at 3:04 in the morning, and begins to read the silence the way his training taught him. This is the story of what that reading looks like, what it took to build it, and what it finds. Most people who form an opinion about the foot guards form it from the outside. They see the bearskin, the scarlet tunic, the absolute stillness at the sentry box, and they make a reasonable assessment. Ceremonial, decorative, a tradition maintained for tourists and photographs, and the particular kind of national theater that Britain has always been very good at producing. They take their picture. They try to make the guard smile. They move on. They are not wrong about what they see. They are wrong about what they are seeing. The public-facing stillness, the unblinking, unsmiling parade ground perfection is real. It is also in the way that icebergs are real while showing you roughly 10% of themselves, only the visible fraction of something that runs considerably deeper. The ceremony is the surface. Underneath it is a training system that has been quietly, methodically producing a specific kind of human capability for centuries, not the capability to stand still. That is the easy part, relatively speaking. The capability to stand still and keep reading. Daniel Reeves joined at 19. He is 26 now. 7 years is not a long career by civilian standards, but in the particular mathematics of this regiment, 7 years of active duty means something specific. It means approximately 2,500 hours of sentry duty across multiple postings. It means a nervous system that has been recalibrated, slowly and without ceremony, to process environments the way a diagnostic instrument processes a signal, filtering noise, flagging deviation, running a continuous background comparison between what is present and what should be present. He did not know this was happening to him while it was happening. Nobody told him, "We are going to rewire the way your brain handles a room." They told him to stand straight, to focus, to not let his attention drift to the tourists or the cameras or the pigeons that occasionally treated the sentry box as a convenient perch. They told him that attention was the job, not the standing, the attention. He thought he understood what they meant. He did not understand what they meant, not for the first 2 years. Understanding came slowly, the way most real understanding comes, not as an arrival but as a gradual discovery that you have already been somewhere for a while without noticing when you arrived. The palace has a grammar. This is not a metaphor, or not only a metaphor. Every large, old building develops a specific internal language over time, a set of sounds and smells and temperatures and light qualities that constitute its version of normal. The building speaks this language constantly, to anyone paying the right kind of attention, and it is largely a language of repetition. The same sounds at the same times. The same draft through the same gap in the same window frame. The same way the heating system ticks and contracts in the deep hours of the night, when the temperature outside drops and the pipes adjust. A royal residence speaks this language in a particularly distinctive register, because a royal residence is, among other things, extraordinarily old. The building Reeves is walking through tonight has been standing in various configurations for several centuries. It has been added to and renovated and reinforced and rewired and replumbed, and yet in the ways that matter to a man reading it at 3 a.m., it is continuous. The building remembers itself, the way weight settles in the floors, the way certain corridors hold cold differently from others, the direction from which you hear the heating before you feel it. At 3 a.m. on a still night, normal sounds like this. The low electrical hum of the security system maintaining itself, not loud enough to name as a sound, present enough that its absence would register. The occasional tick from the east wing radiator, irregular but patterned, arriving in clusters of 2 or 3 with long silences between. The particular quality of quiet that old stone produces, not the absence of sound but a kind of density to the silence, a weight to it that modern buildings with their lighter materials and thinner walls simply do not have. The faint movement of air through the corridor that comes not from any ventilation system, but from the building's own thermal breathing, warm air rising through centuries-old gaps in the stonework. And underneath all of it, almost below the threshold of hearing, the sound of the city outside. London at 3 a.m. does not go silent. It thins. The particular frequency of the city traffic, voices, the aggregate mechanical hum of 8 million people and all their infrastructure drops in register and volume but does not disappear. It becomes a presence rather than a noise. A reminder that the building is not floating in void, but sitting in the middle of one of the largest cities on Earth, which is for reasons that will become clear, relevant. Reeves knows all of this the way he knows his own heartbeat, not consciously, not in the way he could recite it. Though he is reciting it now in the reconstruction of events he will write in his occurrence log before his shift ends. He knows it the way your body knows the weight of your own arm, below the level of thought, present in every movement, only noticeable when something about it changes. Something about it has changed. He starts the list. This is the procedure, and the procedure exists because human attention under uncertainty has a well-documented tendency to go directly to the most dramatic explanation available. Something is wrong becomes something is wrong, and I know what it is before the evidence has been gathered. The list is the counter to that. The list is the discipline. East Corridor overhead lights, correct. Burning at overnight minimum, no bulb failure, no flicker, correct. East Corridor floor, correct. No debris, no displaced runner, no wet patches from a window seal failure. The flagstones sitting exactly as they always sit. The slight unevenness near the third door that he registered on his first week here and has walked past approximately 400 times since. Correct. East Corridor doors, he checks each one in sequence. Closed, secured, the small telltales he has learned to read, the way the handle sits, the gap at the base, the reflection of light in the brass fittings that tells him about the door's angle in its frame. First door, correct. Second door, correct. Third door, correct. He does this without breaking stride or almost without. There is still something in his feet that wants to slow, that is running a counterargument to the list's reassurances, and he is not dismissing it. He is filing it, letting it stay active while the list continues. Temperature correct. The corridor is cold in the way it is always cold at this hour, the particular dry cold of old stone in January. He is wearing the appropriate layers. He is not unusually cold. Correct. Sound, he stops, stands, listens in the specific way he was taught to listen, which is not the focused, directed listening of someone who thinks they know what they are listening for, but the open, unfocused listening of someone clearing every expectation from the frame and waiting to see what presents itself. The hum present, correct. The radiator tick present. He counts the interval, correct. The city underneath, present, correct. Something else. He cannot name it yet. It is not a sound in the conventional sense, not a footstep, not a voice, not the mechanical report of something moving that should be still. It is more like a quality, an addition to the air, something present that the air in this corridor at this hour does not normally contain. He stands with it for 11 seconds. He counts. 11 seconds is longer than it sounds when you are standing in a royal residence at 3 a.m. with your body telling you something your list has not yet confirmed. Then he places it. Damp. Not water, not the cold damp of a leak or a failed seal. Organic damp. The smell of something living in air that should, at this hour in this sealed corridor, contain nothing living except him. The men who have done this job across the centuries would recognize the moment without needing it explained. There is a version of this role that is older than the buildings these men currently guard, older than the specific regiments that now carry it, older than the uniforms, older than the formal architecture of royal protection as it currently exists. The role of the night watch, the person designated to stay awake and attentive while everything valuable sleeps, is among the oldest human social arrangements that can be traced. It predates writing in its earliest forms. It appears in the organizational structures of the first permanent settlements, in the military records of ancient campaigns, in the domestic arrangements of households wealthy enough to require protection and organized enough to provide it. What the role has always required, in every iteration across every culture that has developed it, is a specific cognitive posture that has no entirely satisfying name in modern English. The closest approximation is probably vigilance, but vigilance implies active scanning, directed attention looking for something. What the night watch develops is different. It is more passive than vigilance, more receptive. It is the posture of someone who has memorized normal so completely that deviation announces itself without being searched for. The training that produces Guardsman Reeves is, in its essentials, the same training that produced the men who walked the corridors of every previous version of this building. Not in its specifics, the procedures, the protocols, the equipment, the communication systems are entirely modern. In its essentials, the long hours of standing and attending, the deliberate cultivation of the baseline, the slow, patient construction of a human instrument calibrated to a specific environment. What changes across the centuries is the building. What does not change is the requirement. You must know normal so well that wrong announces itself in the dark before you can see it. Reeves is 26. The man who first stood watch in the earliest version of this building was probably younger. They would not have much to say to each other across the distance of centuries, different language, different world, different everything. But at 3 a.m. in a corridor that smells of something that should not be there, they would understand each other completely. He moves toward the smell rather than away from it, which is worth noting because it is not the instinctive direction. The instinctive direction, the one evolution spent several million years installing, is away. Unfamiliar smell in the dark means potential threat. Potential threat means distance is safety. This is correct reasoning for an organism trying to survive in an environment it does not control. Reeves is not trying to survive in an environment he does not control. He controls this environment. Or more precisely, his job is to be the person responsible for it, which in the practical terms of 3 a.m. means the same thing. He moves toward the smell. It takes him to the fourth door on the left, the door he checked 12 minutes ago. The door that was, at that point, correct in every observable particular handle position, gap at the base, angle in the frame, reflection in the brass fittings. He looks at it again now, and the list updates itself. The gap at the base of the door is fractionally wider than it was. Not much, not the theatrical gap of a door swung dramatically open, not anything that would register as a visual alarm, not anything that would appear in a photograph as obviously wrong. A centimeter, perhaps slightly more. The kind of gap that happens when a door that was fully closed is opened and then pushed back without being properly latched. The kind of gap that lets air move between two spaces that should be sealed from each other. He keys his radio, speaks in the flat, specific language of the occurrence report, which is a language designed to communicate maximum information in minimum words with minimum emotional inference. He gives his location. He gives the door number. He says he is investigating an anomaly and will report. Then he opens the door. The room on the other side of the door is a service corridor, a narrow, low-ceilinged passage that connects the east wing to the older part of the building, used during the day by maintenance staff, by housekeeping, by the small army of people whose job is to keep the visible palace looking the way the visible palace is supposed to look. At 3 a.m., it is supposed to be empty, dark, and sealed. It is dark, it is sealed, or was until the door was opened. It is not empty. There is a cat. It is sitting in the middle of the service corridor with the absolute composure of a creature that has never once in its life considered the possibility that it might be somewhere it shouldn't be. Reeves will note this in the occurrence log with the same flat specificity he applies to everything: a tabby, medium-sized, wearing a collar with a small disc that catches the light from the door he has just opened. It looks at him. He looks at it. The corridor is very quiet. The damp smell is stronger here. Wet fur, cold air, the organic warmth of a small living thing that has been sitting in a stone corridor for some indeterminate period of time. The cat, Reeves will later establish, belongs to one of the household staff. It has a name, which is noted in the occurrence log. It had slipped into the building during the evening through a door held briefly open, and had spent several hours navigating its way through the service passages in what the occurrence report carefully describes as an unauthorized internal movement. It is cold and mildly affronted and completely uninjured. It accepts being picked up with the tolerant resignation of an animal that knows how this ends. Reeves carries it to the duty room, finds a box, puts a folded jacket in the box, puts the cat in the box, notes the time, writes the report, flags the door seal for inspection, and then, because there is still 2 hours left in his rotation, goes back to the east corridor and continues his round. This is the part that does not make it into any newspaper. This is the part that is not on any tourist information board outside the barracks. At 3:27 a.m. on a January night, a guardsman found a cat in a service corridor and handled it with the same procedural completeness he would have brought to anything else, because the procedure does not scale itself to the drama of the outcome. The procedure is the same for a cat as it would be for anything else. The attention is the same. The response is the same. The report is written with the same flat, specific language regardless of what it contains. This is, if you think about it for a moment, exactly the point. When the shift ends and the morning comes, the palace performs its daily transformation. The overnight quiet, that particular density of silence, the ticking radiator, the breathing stonework, gives way to the sounds of a large household coming back to life. Footsteps in corridors, voices, the distant clink of a kitchen beginning its work, light changing as curtains are opened and morning comes through windows that face east and catch it first. The building that was, 3 hours ago, a closed system held by one man and a checklist and a nervous system calibrated over 7 years, becomes the building the public knows. Warm, staffed, purposeful, beginning the performance of another day. Reeves hands over to the incoming watch. He gives a verbal summary and the written log. He mentions the cat. The incoming guardsman notes it, files it, moves on. By the time the household is fully active, the occurrence has been received, processed, and placed in the category of resolved, a door seal to be checked, a staff member to be contacted about her cat, a small administrative footnote in the daily record. Outside, in the early morning, the city is reassembling itself. The thin quiet of 3 a.m. is gone, replaced by the building aggregate roar of London returning to full volume. Buses, commuters, the particular urgency of a capital city remembering what it is for in daylight. Tourists are beginning to appear at the gates, cameras ready, looking for the image they came here to take. Some of them will see a guard. They will see the stillness, the uniform, the absolute absence of visible response to their presence. They will take their photographs. Some of them will try to make him smile or flinch, because humans are fundamentally curious about the edges of other people's discipline, and a guard who will not react is an irresistible invitation to find out where the limit is. They will not find it. They will eventually move on, carrying their photographs and their assumption, ceremonial, decorative, an elaborate national costume worn by a man standing in for a symbol. They will not know about 3 a.m. They will not know about the 400 repetitions of the East Corridor. They will not know about the list of nothings, or the 11 seconds of open listening, or the fractionally wider gap at the base of the fourth door on the left. They will not know what organic damp smells like in old stone, or how a nervous system learns to notice it without being directed to, or what it takes to build a human instrument sensitive enough to read a silent building for the one thing that has changed. They will not know about the cat, sitting in its box on a folded jacket, mildly affronted and completely safe. Here is what you now know that you did not know when you started reading. You know that the stillness you see at the sentry box is not the whole of the thing. It is the visible fraction. The larger part is interior, built over years of repetition, operating below conscious thought, running its continuous comparison between what is present and what should be present. You know that the palace has a grammar, a specific language of sounds and temperatures and smells that constitutes its version of normal at 3 a.m., and that the guards who hold it through the night learn that language so completely that deviation from it registers in the body before it registers in the mind. You know that this kind of attention is not modern, it is ancient. It is the cognitive inheritance of every person who has ever been designated the one who stays awake so that everything valuable can sleep. The buildings change. The uniforms change. The equipment and protocols and communication systems change. The requirement does not change. You know that the occurrence log for the night of the cat was written in the same flat, specific language as every other occurrence log. Because the procedure does not scale itself to the drama of the outcome, a door seal flagged for inspection, a staff member to be contacted, a cat in a box on a folded jacket, resolved. You know that resolved is what the job looks like when it is working. And here is the thing worth sitting with, not the procedural question, not the historical question, the human one. The thing Guardsman Reeves carried out of that building when his shift ended was not the cat. The cat went home with its owner. What Reeves carried out was the same thing he carries every time, the knowledge that the building was held, that the check was made, that the list was run and the deviation was found and the response was proportionate and complete. Nobody asked him how it went. There is no one waiting outside the duty room at the end of a night shift who wants to know what 3 a.m. felt like. The debrief is procedural. The log is filed. The handover is made, and then you go home and you sleep, and tomorrow night or the night after you come back and do it again. Most people who benefit from this arrangement never know it exists. They live in a city that contains, among its 8 million people, a small number of individuals who have spent years building a particular kind of attention, hypervigilant, wordless, institutional, running continuously in the background of whoever they have become. These people stand in public and look like ceremony. They go home and look like nothing in particular. They walk through their own houses at night and notice things. They cannot stop noticing. The calibration does not switch off when the shift ends. It becomes, over enough years, simply the way they move through the world. This is what the training actually produces. Not a man who can stand still, a man who cannot stop reading. So next time you find yourself outside the palace, Next time you see one of them at the gate or on the road or standing at the position they have been assigned, look past the uniform. Look at the stillness and understand now what that stillness is doing. It is not resting, it is working. It is running the list. It is holding the baseline. It is doing the continuous, quiet, invisible work of knowing normal so completely that wrong cannot enter the building without announcing itself. The East Corridor is 400 flagstones long. The fourth door on the left has a brass handle that sits at a specific angle when the door is properly latched. The radiator ticks in clusters of 2 or 3 with long silences between. At 3 a.m., the corridor smells of old stone and recycled air and nothing else. Guardsman Daniel Reeves knows all of this. He knows it the way you know your own heartbeat, below thought, below language, present in every step. And on the night it mattered, his feet slowed down before he could say why. That is not ceremony. That is something considerably rarer. That is a human being who has been so thoroughly shaped by a purpose that the purpose has become indistinguishable from the person. The palace is still, the guard is still. Now you know what still actually costs.